We have multiple days of severe weather on the way as several storm complexes will be traversing across the northern periphery of a dominating ridge. It all kicks off later on this afternoon into the early evening time frame up here in portions of Nebraska, getting into areas of Kansas, Iowa, as well as into Missouri. And unfortunately, those are going to be rotating. So definitely keep an eye on the sky anywhere from 6 to 11 o'clock this evening. And they also could be producing some very significant hail on upwards to the 2 inches in diameter, or possibly even bigger, up to baseball size in some isolated spots. And some of those wind gusts can approach the 65, even possible 70 miles an hour range. So I think things get going around 6 o'clock, where we're going to be looking at a convective complex blow up across the Dakotas. Those are going to be diving southeastward and really kind of taking a bullseye there into Iowa, areas of Kansas, back into eastern portions of Nebraska. And those will swing eventually into Missouri, while we have our hurricane just now been upgraded to a hurricane and could possibly go into a major hurricane, but safely remaining well off the coast of the East Coast. But as we head into tomorrow, we're going to be watching those series of storm complexes. We've got a dominating ridge to the south. That heat is only going to be building as we get deeper into the week, and especially into next week. But on the northern periphery, we're going to be having that series of storm complexes come off the Pacific. And as they head into the central part of the U.S., they're going to tap into some of that energy and produce some more severe storms. So yet we're going to be looking at another storm complex as we head into Thursday afternoon. Here it is on the satellite picture. Again, a similar spot in and around to portions of Wisconsin, Iowa, eventually heading into Missouri, back into Illinois now, as we have our hurricane that's starting to grow in intensity, but continuing to remain well out into the open waters. And as we head into Thursday afternoon, there's the storm complexes. I think that's when we could be looking at a little bit more significant threat for severe storms, especially as we head into Illinois, good part of Missouri, and then eventually that is also going to be swinging into Indiana as well as into Ohio. And right now we do have a slight risk, but I fully expect this to be bumped up to an enhanced risk as we get closer to this event tomorrow. So pretty much the entire state of Illinois and back into Missouri is essentially under the gun, as they will be traversing southeastward, weakening as they head into Indiana and portions of Kentucky, and eventually swinging into areas of Oklahoma. But if you sum it up over the next 2 days, it kind of looks like this. We've got that ridge of high pressure is going to be pretty much locked and loaded over a good part of the west and the central southern U.S., but it's just on that northern periphery where we do have some lower pressures and the weakness in the ridge. That's where supercell thunderstorms are going to fire. So the bullseye pretty much puts it into eastern areas of the Dakotas, back into Minnesota, as well as into Iowa, getting into Missouri, and fishtailing further south, maybe even to portions of Arkansas. But as we head into Thursday, those will swing into Illinois and eventually kind of fade as they swing into Indiana, Ohio, and back into Kentucky for now in the next 48 hours. So if you sum it up and you look at some of the greatest updrafts and where the helicity tracks are, where they could produce some of the larger hail and some spin up tornadoes, it's right along this periphery. So I think things are going to be fairly weak going into eastern portions of South Dakota, but really get its act together across eastern areas of Nebraska, especially into Iowa, and getting into Missouri. And usually when these things start turning southeastward, that's when they pick up the intensity on the tornado front and also on the hail front. That's when you could be seeing some of the largest hailstones once those storms do turn that southeastward trajectory. But there is Ernesto, just now officially a hurricane out there towards the the islands there. Then as it swings further north, it is expected to continue to intensify, and it gets dangerously close to Bermuda. There it is, could possibly at one point upgrade to a major hurricane. And beyond Bermuda, we actually have to keep our eyes out on Nova Scotia. That's actually gets pretty close to Nova Scotia. You can still see some definitely some very strong gusty winds and a lot of high sea surf, high waves off the east coast. But it's going to remain well off the east coast. But you're going to be dealing with your own trough and for those areas across the northeast, because we have yet another significant vorticity that's going to again travel across this same zone, and as it does, it's going to be gaining intensity again back into Wisconsin as well as into Illinois. This is during the day on Friday now, and those will swing also into Indiana and Ohio and have a lot of water vapor content with it. So there is Ernesto keeping well offshore, but this is where the activity and the low pressure center is going to be highlighted across the Great Lakes. And then that kind of counterclockwise flow with some of those stronger wind gusts and some of those heavier rain bands will be swinging into Kentucky, eventually head into Ohio again, and this now will eventually head into areas of Pennsylvania. But if we spread it out and look at the Atlantic and kind of look at Ernesto down to a 971 millibar, this would be on the day on Saturday the 17th. All the aspects are heading towards the East Coast. So we've got these little multiple short waves that'll be coming across. So by the time we head into Saturday, this will link up to this low pressure center and really activate the storms into the Northeast. They've had so much rain lately. And yes, they're going to get another system inundating the same areas over again, even though you won't get directly impacted from Ernesto. You will still feel the effects from this trough that's going to be coming in from the west and moving east, and that's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. It's actually going to hang around even on Sunday as Ernesto gets a little bit closer, still several hundred miles offshore of Nantucket, but you're still going to be getting some of that heavy rain complements of that trough that will be moving in. So yes, you're still going to get aspects of some heavier rains and some stronger winds into the mid-Atlantic, definitely into the Northeast and heading into New England, eventually getting into Nova Scotia as we head into Monday. So look at the wave heights as we head into Sunday afternoon. You can see the direction, some of the upwelling. You could be looking at some of these high beach erosion off this far east coast areas, but nothing fairly significant as looks to keep remaining several hundred miles offshore. But if you look at the wind swath, it's going to get dangerously close to Nova Scotia. It could be a kind of a glancing blow, but there is probably going to be one day on Monday where you're going to be getting definitely some gustier winds up there, as it might turn into more of an extra tropical type system by then. And this will be continue to move northbound and eventually move safely out into the Canadian maritime. But if we kind of zoom in here, there's where it can possibly clip Nova Scotia, as we head into that Monday afternoon time frame. So definitely be on the lookout for Ernesto, because we can't ultimately write them off as of yet. It is going to be getting close to Bermuda and then eventually close to Nova Scotia on Monday. But going into Monday, yes, there is that ridge of high pressure. Not only will it expand, it'll deepen and actually get stronger as we head into next week. So for those areas across the southern central plains, that heat, you think it's hot now, it's only going to get even hotter as we head into especially early parts of next week. And that trough will be kind of taking advantage over most of the central U.S. So you'll have some cooler anomalies start to come back for the extreme portions of the Pacific Northwest. You'll have the dominating ridge in the middle, and then you'll have that trough to keep the cooler intrusions and the northwest flow alive for a good part of the Ohio Valley, the Northeast, and into the mid-Atlantic. So if we sum it up over the next 5 days on the rainfall aspects, you can see where the ridge of high pressure is. A lot of the sinking air, you're going to be begging for rain. You're just not going to get it. Everything's traversing on the outside of the periphery of that ridge, complements of that northwest flow, those lower pressures, and these series of storm complexes, these little short waves that come in off the Pacific. Those are going to be activating the storms. That's where the severe storms are going to be over multiple days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then all this is just going to be rain up the East Coast as we head into Saturday and Sunday, and keep the cooler anomalies around for early next week. So you still get this cooler air still filtering in. It's going to be feeling really nice. Some areas going to be feeling more like fall-like, and a good part of the Ohio Valley and the Mid-Atlantic into the Northeast, but it's going to be every bit of summer, and likely even some of the hottest temperatures so far you've seen this summer across a good part of the plains, much of the middle part of the country, and eventually that is going to be swinging into much of Montana and back into the Dakotas, with pretty intense heat going to be building. And the rain is just going to continue for you guys up there into the Northeast, as yet we'll have another little system come across and wring out the precipitation and dump another coating of rain where you definitely don't need any more as of right now. But if you kind of sum it up over the next 7 days, it kind of looks like this, folks. You got the ridge of high pressure pretty much locked and loaded over a good part of the central U.S. We'll have the troughing inversion come in and off the Pacific Northwest and far extreme portions of the West Coast. And then with these series of storm complexes, the Northwest flow and these troughs that come down, ultimately it just keeps the cooler anomalies for the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, much of the Mid-Atlantic, and a good part of the Northeast on the below average side, and the above average rains will be inundating those areas for coming up for a good part of the next 7 days. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch my next update while I protect you before and after storm.